with this judgment aspect, let's remember that it goes back down to every cell. Every amoeba has this action reaction to toxic environments or to something pleasurable or a food source it will go towards, something toxic, pull away from. It's a very instinctive reaction. It's built into all of our cells. So overriding that, and in the case of going into spiritual evolution, we do have to override some of our basic instincts that are more animal based. So bear that in mind, because it applies then to various things, the yama niyama, not just following sex drive, not just following the eating function to no end. There's reasons for abstaining from some of these, pulling back and dedicating more time to the actual practice of yoga. So these 5 kinds of mental processes, he is talking about right knowledge and wrong knowledge. These are 2 aspects in our mind, and the right knowledge includes the perception of something which is exactly what it is. You see a snake on the path, or it's kind of getting dark and it's just a rope that's in the shape of a wave, and we think, oh, that's a snake. That's a misinterpretation of the present moment. And then that falls into the wrong knowledge, wrong perception. Now the knowledge is something that goes into the memory again, what we have learned, what's true, what's not. So it's important to take the time in yoga to look through our belief system, what we know, what we think we know, and then go from there to actually screening out or filtering out the things that are not accurate, not true. And we've all gone through many years of education, just the basic high school education, 12 years of programming, taking in information which isn't necessarily accurate or correct. Even the scientific information has completely changed since the development, discovery of quantum physics, taking things back to the reality of everything is made of energy. If everything is made of energy, we control the energy. It's a whole different ballgame from things being fixed and stuck and nothing we can do about it. We are in control of the energy. This is what quantum physics says. This is a whole new belief system, a whole new understanding of the reality of life. And it changes our approach to life, but we're still not being taught that. The chakra yoga system goes deeply into that, the understanding of the forces of the chakras, how that is connected to each of the endocrine glands, and how this is really controlling all of our body chemistry and the functions in our body and everything that happens. And by empowering the chakras at each level, you're rejuvenating the endocrine gland that produces the hormones that is governing your body functions. So this is right knowledge, it's accurate knowledge, and it's worth knowing. More worth knowing than all the IT technology, because it applies directly to human being, not to AI. And this is more important because we are actually humans. So this is just right knowledge, wrong knowledge, which he's stating as the functions, or what were called the modifications of the mind, the activities of the mind, the sections of right knowledge, wrong knowledge, right perception, mistaken perception, going into the memory of the knowledge that we know, which then is contained again in memory. From there he goes into imagination, fantasy. Fantasy is a term that is often translated for the Sanskrit. Imagination is a closer look at the reality of it. We imagine something. With this imagination, we create the fantasies. And the fantasies can then be taking us all over the world in this kind of hypnotic trance of watching the fairy tales in our own mind. So it becomes a serious distraction, a modification of the mind, an activity of the mind that isn't really useful for us. It's entertainment. It's just like you're watching TV all the time. You're going to movies day after day. The movies are in your head in this game. We are imagining this. So this is the fantasy aspect. The image making, the imagination is a function of mind that has a really strong purpose. We imagine something we would like to have. We imagine our body healing in a specific way. We imagine ourselves to be really healthy and strong. The body will follow the images that we are creating or that we are accepting in our mind. And how many images have we taken in that are not really acceptable, not really good? Look at all the news on TV. Look at all the programming that we've had that comes in images and pictures. It's not necessarily beneficial at all. And in yoga, you learn to imagine something better, more accurate, something that is beneficial. And here I would go into again the chakra system, where you're looking at the mandalas for each of the chakras. They are geometric forms, pictures of a reality of how the energy is formatting. And this energy is formatting your molecular structure, your atoms, your molecules, and into your brain chemistry, into your body chemistry. This is what happens at the endocrine level, the first connection of the chakras. So imagining something more positive, looking at these things, and in the chakra yoga system, of course, we've got the mandalas that are used in focus, concentration, putting the pictures in your mind, and this becomes the seed that then your body will follow this pattern and create a better molecular structure, more accurate to how we were designed to be healthy, functioning, happy. This is all part of the process. So imagination, rather than letting it carry you away into fantasies, and then again watching someone else's fantasies, which is what we do with TV and games and going to the movies and all these things. It's all fantasy that is a distraction from why we are here, from what's really going on in the now. It takes us away to someone else's imagined story, which can be interesting. Maybe there's something you can learn from it. But if you're looking at 95% of Hollywood movies, it's fantasy, distraction, imagination, and it contains a lot of negative imagery, negative pictures that then go into your mind. So in yoga, these are replaced with the positive imagery of a healthy, happy body, a beautiful, functional society based on love and happiness, internal dimensions of going into the chakra world, this electromagnetic place of seeing and feeling the inner chakras. The images can take us there if that's what we're focusing on. So this is the imagination function that is translated quite often as just fantasy, as something useless. It's not useless. It's a very powerful tool that we need to use. So we have these: right knowledge, misconception, wrong knowledge, imagination and fantasy. And then he goes into sleep. Now, sleep is a state of unconsciousness sometimes, but then you can be conscious of having dreams in your sleep. And these dreams are unlimited in what they are showing us. So the dream world is kind of a portal that's going into a dimension of possibilities that your logical mind will say, well, no, that's not possible. It's too dreamlike. So we can even border up into the fantasy level here. But the reality of the dream world, how far can you go in dreams? Into the past, into the future, into other dimensions. But you have no way of labeling that or mapping it out as to exactly where was this dimension, where did that dream come from. But you can learn from dreams, and this is one of the things Patanjali mentions. there's a lot that can be learned in this dream world. We can see things, we can learn to direct our dreams actually, and hold an image as we are going to sleep or just before, taking us to an ancient culture or to a future possibility. And the mind, when it's dropping its conscious control of our logical thinking, then we are much more open to a greater realm of possibilities. This can be done in a dream state, or what we do in yoga is go into a deep relaxation. And in this state, you're observing how the logical mind becomes less logical, a little more fantastic, a little more imaginative, bringing in possibilities that you had never thought of in a logical state. And then as you go deeper into it, you're into the dream world, maybe you lose consciousness. There are really cool relaxation techniques, for instance, using Savitri, where you go in and you're breathing your way into the subconscious, letting go of conscious control. And you kind of walk into the dream world without falling asleep, without losing consciousness. And it's interesting enough that when you do that, you're awake in this dream state, but then you wake up out of it. And you realize, oh, that was interesting. Like when you wake up out of a dream. But you can consciously go into the dream state with these techniques. And now you're getting into the sleep, the dream, the meditative state, the opening of possibilities in other dimensions. So it's, again, the distinction between the meditative state and the sleep and dream state are not that far apart. And if you look at cultures like the Aboriginal tribes of Australia, they had this concept of dream time that they would go into. It's a meditational state. And in this dream time, you're looking at the possibilities, you're looking at something you cannot see in your normal state of consciousness. So what Patanjali is saying about sleep, it's another big department that we can explore, develop, and use to our advantage when we learn to control consciousness, take the conscious logical thinking out of the way, and just be in this state of observation of the mind stuff. The possibilities become unlimited, and the possibilities can be pulled into this world, into this world as possibilities, probabilities, and then manifested. So, be aware of your dreams. Then what we come to is perhaps the biggest block of them all, and it's called memory. How many memories do you have? How many things have you seen? How many songs have you heard? How many conversations? How much has been put into your mind through an educational system? As I mentioned, just the basic 12 years of primary education. Knowledge, information loaded into us. And then you got to go look at the right knowledge, wrong knowledge. Is it worth keeping this information? We have to update everything now because even science has turned over. Never mind history that was covered up, and look at the fact that, hey, they're finding pyramids all over the world now. Who were the pyramid builders? We don't even know. It's not being questioned on public media. So the memory thing is very big, and this is where we contain our right knowledge, wrong knowledge. We have judged it already, and we think we believe this because we think this is true. We have a bunch of mistaken information that isn't necessarily true, but we need to go in there with consciousness, discrimination, and take out the wrong knowledge, the mistaken information about history, about science, and replace it with the newer science, the newer discoveries in history that they're finding everywhere. We are much older as a species than we have been taught in normal school. So that's memory. And again, how much, how many memories, how big is your memory bank, and is it useful information that you need to have now? This is the general classification of these 5 activities of the mind. I call them activities because they are departments of the mind. Again, the word modification is a bit misleading. People don't quite know how to understand that. Let's take a deep breath and let it go. In Sutra number 6, Patanjali then goes into a little more detail about the sources of right knowledge are direct perception, going back to the snake and the rope. You see an actual wiggling snake, it's what it is. Mistaken a rope for a snake is a mistaken. So this is right knowledge, direct perception, out of which we gain the information about the world. And then we're taught so much. Some of it is real, some of it is not. And everything that's based on your personal experience has a greater reality than the theories that we are taught in school or wherever. So again, I mentioned going through the whole belief system of everything you've learned and looking at what's real and what's not. And applying this even to what we've learned about medical science and disease and the state of human affairs and how healthy are we. And the right knowledge department in yoga is learning, first off, everything about your body. How does your body work? What are the functions? And going into the chakras, the endocrine glands, the body chemistry. How do cells work? How does every gland and organ function? And it's important to have this understanding. It's right knowledge, and you can learn this more today because there is good scientific information about this. There might be some misinformation. So again, you need to look at this with discrimination. And going from the energetics of chakras, quantum physics, and into our chemistry, our ability to take the electromagnetic waves and mold them into the atoms and molecules we need. This is the new science, the new reality. And this is a reality. It's not even the atomic structuring that Newton taught hundreds of years ago that's still governing medical science. It's a whole new possibility. We influence our chemistry incredibly by our thinking process, by our belief system. This is right knowledge. We need to grasp this and apply it in our life. And Patanjali mentions inference. Assuming from what we know something that we don't yet see or know or experience, but we can make an assumption about how something will work. We can make an assumption when we turn down this road that we're going to end up in a certain place. This is the right knowledge applied and assuming that things are the way they are and we'll get the results that we expect to get, including practicing yoga, assuming that we're going to get the good benefits of a healthy body by doing this. So as we go through these functions of the mind, you might find I am bouncing back and forth a little bit, but in the reality of our mind, these functions are all operating somewhat consistently and jumping from one to the other. I mentioned the jump from the memory bank to imagination, and then we go to right knowledge, wrong knowledge. What is right knowledge? And you have to compare that with something else, which is mistaken wrong knowledge. We talk about the perception of seeing something and mistaking it, a wrong interpretation of what we're seeing. That's perception, which can be right or wrong, accurate or mistaken. And then the knowledge that is coming from that also then goes into our memory to be part of our understanding of the world, and if we have mistaken interpretations, the mistakes are registered in our memory. This is one of the problems of the mind, problems of our memory. And I said, looking at our whole belief system, there's a lot of mistakes that we've accepted. What we have learned about science, what we have learned about history, what we presently learn about medical science, there's a lot of stuff here that is not really accurate. And again, the quantum revelation, the quantum revolution of what everything is actually made of was mistaken and has been rediscovered, and it rolls back to a phenomenon of the energetic world. So in our knowledge, looking with discrimination, sometimes that's interpreted as a prejudiced word, but with the ability to see what's true and what's not, what's right and what's wrong, going through our memory. This is an important thing we need to do in this process of yoga in order to come up with a belief system that is accurate. And our belief system in yoga needs to be based also on the reality of our own experience. If an orange falls out of the tree and bounces on my head, that's a real experience. I know that gravity is there, it's pulling the orange down, it's bounced on my head. The experience is a reality. It's not a theory, it's not something someone told me, it's real. And when our experiences are based on this reality, we have a foundation that is solid. So this applies to the world of chakras, the world of consciousness and yoga. Going into higher consciousness allows us to have an experience which becomes real for us. So misconception of the environment, seeing things in bad light and mistaken, thinking it's something else. Then going into relationships where someone says something, is having a conversation with someone, your partner is having a conversation with someone, and they're both laughing and smiling, and you think, oh, they're being too happy together. They must be planning something. Maybe they're falling in love, or maybe they're going to have an affair. If you've had that experience in the past, you're going to expect it in the future. And this is mistaken. And this is getting a little further ahead into the role of imagination and memory, which relies on the memory. These two are constantly entangled, and the biggest process of the mind is to assess your environment and see if it's good or bad, safe or not, whether the next experience you're going into is going to be pleasant or harmful, very unpleasant. So this mistaken identity comes into the sutra number 8. Then we fall now, or move up the ladder into sutra number 9, which deals with the imagination and fantasy. And as I've already said something about this, so in the reality of yoga, you're using this imagination to then project something, paint a picture, applied to your body, of you in a very healthy state. And you can take pictures from where tons of images on the internet these days. Look at your bone structure, look at your muscles, look at glands and organs, get images of those, and then take that image on the inside. In Raja Yoga we do that with the chakras, taking the geometric form with all of its beauty and color and taking it to the inside and then centering it in one of the chakras. So that's a primary focus in Raj Yoga. In normal living, you can just be looking at glands and organs and the body in general. Imagine yourself being strong and healthy, and your body will try and move towards that. Then you need to support it with good breathing and good nutrition and other things. But this is the reality of how it works in the mind-body connection. And we need really to understand this and grasp it and apply it to our lives. Not take the imagined fantasies that we see on TV of some suffering person dying in a hospital. That image in your mind can then be projected into your future, and you don't really want that. So understand imagination as something, a powerful tool, and not something that's going to take you off into fantasy land, Alice in Wonderland, lots of fantasies. Hollywood is producing them daily, so is Bollywood. And these are all imagined fantasies from someone else. They're not yours, they're not mine. And they're projecting a kind of a reality about what the world is like, should be like, could be like. And it's sometimes a little too far out of context with our reality. But we're growing up in this age of images and television and movies, which didn't used to be here. And now our life is based on these. And we have all these images of warfare and problems and things. Images coming from TV, even watching the news, and then we're projecting that and continuing the problem by looking at it, focusing on it, and then the mind automatically is going to be taking these images and projecting them into our possible future. Our possible future as a human race, as a society that's full of many problems with the disease and warfare, poverty, and all these things. We can change that by changing our image. And we do that in our own minds first. How could we make things better? So this is imagination, what is sometimes interpreted as fantasy when people talk about the sutras. Understand in yoga the image faculty, the photographic and the image making, the imagination is a powerful tool that we should learn to use and not let it distract us. So the mind out of control again will take past memory of an image you saw somewhere on TV, in your life, wherever, and project this into the future and make it a little bit different, change it around into something maybe you want or maybe you don't want. Be aware of this faculty. When you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can see this. And when you have a belief system that is realizing how the game works, you can take the electromagnetic energy and move it into ways that are to your advantage in creating better health. Now I say this as far as when you have a physical disease and you have the memory of this disease, you have a problem, you have the memory of aches and pains and of suffering. This is a stronghold for your mind. It lives on these memories. It will keep reproducing them every day. So you want to go beyond that. And in the dream world, you're stepping into more the fantasy realm of possibilities, going back into Alice in Wonderland and all these things. What are the possibilities? And rather than just dreaming away and letting your mind just ramble on with these things, you're taking a possibility that you'd like to bring into a probability. And in the dream world, what the Aboriginal people call dream time, the time of dreams when your consciousness isn't molding everything into the structured reality of our present civilization, then we have possibilities of working with a magical energy. It is magical energy. We've been very limited and programmed out of the magic in order to construct our society of consumers and people who are just in a kind of a paid slavery and working to pay their debts and whatnot. We've lost the magic. We've lost so many of the possibilities because of that. So it's important to reset our mind. And in the dream state, we might have visions of possibilities that we haven't thought about in our conscious control of the mind. So this sleep state allows us to go beyond the conscious mind. Consciousness can go into the sleep state. You have dreams sometimes. You're not controlling these dreams with your conscious mind. A lot of things can come up from the subconscious. A lot of things can come up from your past memories. A lot of things can just come in as if by magic. This is a real world we can work with, deal with in a positive, constructive way. So that's Sutra number 10. Then we come to number 11, which is what I would deem as the biggest stumbling block, biggest modification of the mind. That is memory itself. And memory, in some texts, in Taimni's texts, he describes it, translates it as memory is not letting go of an event, of something that has happened. Holding on to something so that we can bring it back up and process it and think about it, and then we talk about it with all our friends. So we're no longer in the present when we're having a conversation about what happened yesterday. We're already in this memory bank, and you start filling up your memories the day you're born. Millions of sights and sounds and things accumulated over your whole life. And again, this is going to affect you, of course, because the mind is then reprojecting these memories based on your experience. And then every experience you have in the present is cross-checked with similar experiences in the past. And if it was painful in the past, you're anticipating the same kind of a pain. This applies to putting your hand into the fire or having a questionable relationship where you don't trust the person. So how many memories do you have? And the mind knows them all and can cruise around in your memory banks and pick up these situations and project the fears of this could be a bad situation for you. And then you avoid the situation because it could be bad. Once in the past it was, or maybe 10 times in the past it was. So knowing this projection based on your memory is an important feature. And the memory of some people who've had bad childhoods, again, is going into trauma and abuse and pain and neglect and things which were really not pleasant as a child, and then you're anticipating this again. And because you're anticipating it, you're going to reproduce the same scene of being abandoned, of not being loved, of being in a dangerous situation. It's projected. Anticipated, projected, because we've had the experience in the past. And in this case, you need to bring in a new possibility and use some of the techniques like Sa Hung, which is capable of, they say, changing your karma. That's done by deleting your anticipation based on a past experience and ta-da-da-da. If you cut that, you can enter a new experience as a child going in to explore and discover, and you don't have your great wall of expectations that are molding the situation into what you thought it would be. This is the biggest stumbling block, I said. And I've dealt with a lot of people who have had traumatic childhoods and bad experiences, and I see that they can continue recreating these things. Then we have Ekadasi and techniques that are bringing this up so you can look at it and see, why did this happen in your life? Once you understand why things have happened, you can prevent them from happening again. You don't have to keep projecting